All right, guys, check this out. You know what this is? Look. That was my happy dance. You know why? Because I finally got something awesome from my collection that I've been trying to get for years and years and years. I've been hunting this set of cuffs forever, and I finally got them this past weekend. And here they are. You ready? Dun, dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun. I finally got a pair of lily irons. Oh my god. Wow. These are phenomenal. All right, now here's the story. One of the antique dealers that I go, at one of the flea markets I go to, told me months and months ago, when I asked him about shackles, he said, yeah, I got a pair, but they're really weird looking. I'm not really quite sure, how old they are or anything like that. And I was like, well, describe them. And he goes, it's like this bar thing with, 2 loops for the hands. And I was like, oh my God, that sounds like lily irons. So every single week for about 6 or 7 months, I would stop by and say, did you find them yet? He's like, no, I haven't. They're buried in my garage somewhere in a box somewhere. And he said, I bought them like 20 or 30 years ago. I just, I know I have them. I just don't know where. And last weekend, he finally came out with them, and I walked right by his booth. And one of my other friends goes, hey, Arioch, man, a dude down there has got some really weird, funky looking leg shackles for you. And I was like, what? So I went running back, and they were laying on the table like this. Oh, beautiful. I could not believe it. So he let me have them for a really, really, really reasonable price, and I was just freaking out. Unfortunately, they didn't come with a key. Real quick, if you go to handcuffs.org, there's a downloadable PDF about the history of the lily irons, all right? And there's more information in there than I could possibly give you in a video, because the guys that did that, Ron and all my buddies, they did an incredible job of research. I mean, they researched everything about this iron, and it's just phenomenal. It's fantastic reading. I highly recommend it. You go there and check it out. It's at handcuffs.org, and you'll see the file for the lily irons. Okay, there's a picture of these up there. Now, these are famous because all the photographs of the dudes that conspired against Lincoln are shown wearing these. All right, so these are like one of the most desirable and hard to find cuffs there are. And I finally got a pair. I mean, I've handled them before at conventions and whatever, but to actually own a pair is great, and it made my whole year. Now, having said that, I did a couple of months ago buy a pair of these. These are not authentic lily irons, and I knew it when I bought them. These are actual reproductions, and it said so in the listing. The guy that made them said they're modern reproductions of the lily iron. All right, so I bought these a long time ago just as a placeholder, and now they can be replaced. Oh my God. Oh, this is really cool. These lily irons, when I got them, I was like, dude, please tell me you have a key. And he's like, no. And I asked him to, shave a few bucks off because there was no key. Of course, he didn't want to do it, but that was okay. I didn't mind. And I haggled with him a little bit, but he didn't come down in price, but that's okay because, like I said, I got him first. I got him for a steal. So anyway, I bought these things, and I'm carrying them around with me, and in this antique mall, there's like 4 or 5 guys that deal with old tools. And one guy's got a ton of old keys and everything like that, and he's got you name it, it's like scrap iron, he's got all kinds of stuff. And I've given him pictures over the years of these and said, hey, keep your eye out for them, but he never found any. So I was looking for a key, and first guy, nothing. So I went to the next guy, nothing. And then finally I went to the last guy in the loop that I walk around, I walk around in a certain way so I don't miss any of the booths. And I showed him these, and I said, you have a key that would fit it? And he goes, no. He goes, I got a wrench though. And he pulled out something like this. It's a T-shaped wrench. We tried it, and it didn't work. And I was like, it was too big to get into here. See, there's a bolt, 4-sided bolt, square bolt that holds this thing together. And he He said, nope, dude, sorry, that's the only thing I got. And I said, well, wait a minute, there's another one hanging right on the wall next to it. Bingo. We tried it, it worked. I said, how much for the wrench? And he goes, yeah, give me $5 because that's really a cool piece that you have there, and I was really happy to see it. I was like, what? Okay, so $5 for a replacement key. Obviously, these are hefty, and they hold the wrists, you know, apart. They also came in different lengths. Now, there's one weird thing about my pair, and that is this. There's a little brass pin stuck through a hole that was drilled through it. Now, I'll show you this, and when I open it up, you'll be able to see it better. I was like, wonder what that is. Like maybe somebody drilled a hole through both of these bands and used it to hang. I have no idea, but if you can see, there's some good age to that too. Okay, I honestly have no idea what it was. Some lily irons are marked, and these aren't, but there is something stamped inside. You just take the key and very gently I do. Even though these things are solid, really strong, my biggest fear is stripping that bolt. I never want to strip the bolt, so I never force it, and I'm very gentle, and these things work so smooth. Oh, it's beautiful. Open it up, and you can see it's starting to separate, and look at the other side. The patina on these is phenomenal. Now, as you can see, you watch it separate. See it separating? Because it's a screw mechanism, okay? These must have been a real pain in the you-know-what to put on. I think that got it. Yeah, look. And there's the threaded bolt. Threaded bolt that goes into the female part. And if we open that up, and that's got the other threads that accept it's the bolt. That's that pin that I told you about. See, I have no idea what that is. And if you do know, please let me know. Like I said, it doesn't come out, and I'm not going to try. I'm going to leave it in there, you know, so that it's just exactly the way I purchased them. And there's the other hole. Now look what happens when you open these suckers up. Bingo. Now the repros I have, they're pretty cool too, but there's differences, all right? This bolt is smaller, and it's a smaller bolt. And the key that came with the repro cuffs, you know, obviously this guy made it in a shop or whatever, but it does not fit my authentic lily iron. Now these things are also hard to date. If you read in that thing, you know, they were being sold up until like, I mean, I have magic magazines that have pictures of them. Now here's what's neat that's in here. This little stamping. Let me see if you can see that. Right there. It actually is a Roman numerals. It's LVI. And I was like, huh, I wonder what that is. Then I looked on the other side, and there it is again. Identical. So what I'm thinking is that if they made these things on a workbench, they would stamp the pieces probably and said, okay, this band here goes with that one, so we'll put that together on this unit. Some lily irons have stamps, you know, that say, you know, RL or other numbers and things like that, but I'm thinking that that's what this is because, you know, that is identical, and I looked under it with my loop, and it's the same stamping. It was done at the same time. But the point is that, like, these were never broken at any point, and they replaced this side because it might be a different number on this side. You know what I'm saying? There was no repairs or anything like that where they mismatched the pieces. Oh, and another thing. Remember I told you before about people saying, wow, they must have had tiny wrists back then. And I said, no, it would fit in there. Watch, okay? Close it. Now, I can't slip my hand out, but there's proof that it looks smaller than it actually is. I don't know why people think the human wrist is so fat. I don't know, but anyway. So you'd have one hand in there. I won't lock them up. And this is what it would look like. And keep your hands apart. And if you see the photos that you've probably seen in your, you know, grade school history textbooks of the Lincoln conspirators, especially the one guy that looks sort of like he's, you know, I mean, he could be like a rock star. Anyway, he's got a real sad look on his face. Not just because he's about to get hung, but because these things are a pain. And again, read the article in handcuffs.org because it's fascinating. I cannot freaking believe that I finally got a pair of lily irons. Oh my God. If you guys remember when I was at the Indie Lock show and a couple of the guys, Ron brought a pair of his, I think somebody else had a pair of their lily irons, and my mouth was just watering. But there we are. There's no real pitting on it. straight as an arrow. The holes for the wrist aren't bent. They haven't been warped or anything. It's never been forced by anything. There's no markings in there whatsoever to suggest that anybody ever jammed anything in there trying to open them up like a bad wrench or whatever. The bands are not, like I said, they're not bent at all. They're straight. They fit together nice and flush. When I close it, you'll see. It's phenomenal. The hinges, beautiful. Oh my God, I'm so happy. I'm so happy that I got these things. I never thought I'd get a pair like in the next 10 years. I thought I'd have to save up for them for a long time, but when this dude quoted me the price, I was just like, blah, 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 blah. Okay, you got it. Now let's compare these to the modern repros. Now these are obviously made out of steel instead of the iron. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll close them to about the same thing. Also, you'll see some other comparisons. Look. Notice that this edge bevels just a hair, not too much. Whereas this one's straight. Here's a comparison. This one does have a slight ramp to it. Now on the inside, the darker one's the real one, obviously. And it's got almost like a knife edge. And they did a pretty good job of making this one similar. It just makes it a little bit easier and has a tighter fit when it closes. The bands, you can actually see the pin in the hinge here of the repros. You can't see the pin in the originals. Also, notice how the hinge is. Notice how that is like, it's like holding it, almost like this. Curve around, see the little curve? Okay. Now, the repro is more like a regular door hinge that you would see these days with whenever the pin's visible and there's a space. You can see the spaces right there. On the real Lily, nothing. No spaces visible except on that side. See? The repros, it's a bit thinner metal and it's a little squashed, whereas this has that gorgeous oval shape. Look at that, oh my God. I'm still freaking out about these. Sorry about that, Jessica just came home and the dog freaked out. Right, Toby? Come on up, Toby. Come on. Yeah, you do anything to get on camera, won't you? Yes, you will. Look. He's on a high alert because there's squirrels in the tree. The bolt, threaded bolt in the original is much thicker than the repro. Why don't I get one of my leg irons and we'll just take a quickie look, because I did a video on the Lily. I did a video on the Lily leg irons before. It's hard to say, Lily leg irons. We'll do a quick little comparison of the leg irons with the handcuffs. These are the small Lily leg irons. See the bolt in the leg irons? Four-sided. Bolt in the handcuffs, four-sided. Unfortunately, the key that I got for the handcuffs don't fit the leg irons. I can shave this down a little bit on the grinder and it should fit okay. All right, I have another key over there for the leg irons, but look at the bolts. They appear to be the same size bolt, thread-wise. You know, thickness is what I'm talking about. And again, four-sided, it's not an octagon, it's not, you know, a hex bolt or anything like that. It's just a simple four-sided bolt. And that's the other side. See how it's like lead, it's shining through? Whereas these guys, you can't see it. I mean, you know it's there, you can see it a little bit, but I think that these had been stored for years like this. I think they were stored flat like that because there's no rubbing or anything like that. There are scratches that would put pressure on there or anything like that. One side of these guys is really crappy and crunchy, but these are the smoother ones, the smoother side of the leg irons. These are the small leg irons. I am so happy. A match set. Oh, guys, you go together. You're back. You're reunited. And my larger Lily leg irons. Here we go again. See, square, four-sided. See the difference? The same mechanism locks all three kinds of cuffs. Everyone out there that has a real pair of Lily irons, you know, like, just how happy it makes you. It's just, it's just fantastic. The history of these things. And this is something, again, that you see in books, you know, as an escape artist, I'd see pictures of Houdini. He's famous picture of him wearing a set of these through a ladder. When you're a kid, you're like, oh, man, I wish I could get a pair of them someday. And I've been haunting antique shops and scrap yards, I mean, since I was like 15, looking for an actual pair. And I finally found them, and I always had a feeling they would turn up eventually, but I never thought that they'd be in such good shape. Even though this is not the original key and it fits, I'm still very nervous about stripping that at all or putting any kind of scratches or anything on it, so I always do it real gentle, nice and slow. And I'm going to do it this way so you can see them closing. All right, I gotta get that little pin thing lined up, just like that. All right. And there's a part where the bolt on these things moves a little bit. There's a little leeway so that when it goes in, because it's got to line all these bands up, 3 bands, the base and each side have to line up. So there's a little bit of wiggle room with the bolt, so that once it gets nice and tight, there you go. Bingo. There you go, guys. Finally got my pair of lily irons. I'm so happy. And they look beautiful in the drawer next to their brothers, I'm telling you. I think to me they're iconic because the Lincoln connection. I think that if there was a picture of the conspirators in Adam's cuffs, then the Adam's cuffs would be the ones that everybody would be after. Or maybe they might be a little rarer. And especially because of the scrap drives for the 2 world wars, you know, these things have some weight to them. And if you found these in a barn next to, like, say, a Ford Model T or something, you might think it was a spring. Have you ever seen the springs on an old car? They kind of look like this, especially like living in Lancaster County like I do. When you see the horse and buggies go by, they actually have those springs to make the ride a little smoother. And I always thought, man, if I ever find a pair, it's probably going to be where somebody thinks, yeah, it's an old spring from either a buggy or from an old car from the teens or whatever. So I always make sure that when I ask people if they have something similar, I always say, you know, hey, if you have any car springs, let me check them out too, just to see. And more than once, I've been close where there's been, you know, a box full of scrap metal spring, but they're much wider. But I still go through them just to make sure, because it's easy to mistake these, especially like if there was a piece missing or whatever. You know, this could be mistaken for a car part. And as a matter of fact, when I bought these and I was walking around, people would come up and they would go, "What is that from a car?" You know, they actually thought that was a car spring from, you know, the old jalopies or whatever. Just because we know it's a handcuff doesn't mean that everybody does. I mean, you know, because it could easily be confused where, you know, this piece attaches to a strut on a car and this does too, and it keeps it steady or whatever. So don't think just because they say they don't have handcuffs that, you know, when you go to an antique shop or a flea market, just because they say they don't have handcuffs doesn't mean they don't have something that they don't know is handcuffs. You know, a little tip there for you guys, if you're, you know, especially if you're starting to collect, all I can say is persistence. Because like I said, literally it's been at least 6 months on a weekly basis that I've checked in with this guy to see if he found these yet. And that was sight unseen. There's a lot of times where people have said, yeah, I got these handcuffs, and they describe them, and then when they bring them out, it's something completely different. Another example, like H&R Super made a leg iron, and there was this one guy that he swore up and down, that's what I have. I have this leg iron. I have it. It's like this cuff, and he's shaped, you know, boom, 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 and this is exactly what it is. I showed him a picture of the H&R leg iron. I said, is that what you have? And he said, yeah, we'll bring it next week. And when they brought it, it was a pair of brand new Smith & Wesson leg irons. They don't look anything alike, but, you know, especially when antique dealers handle a lot of different items, like military, and maybe he sells, you know, glassware or jewelry, whatever, they can't always file all this info in their minds, you know what I mean? We're specialized in what we're looking for, so you can't always trust, you know, when somebody says, yeah, I got a pair of that at home and I'll bring it next week. Part of me is like super excited, and the other part is like, well, I'll believe it when I see it, because you never know. But this is one of those times where it actually turned out perfect. There you go.